There's going to be like 5 breaks. But we'll slip an ad in those breaks. I'm just kidding. I don't read ads. That's freaking lame.
Yeah, I was just trying to get you to possibly do that.
Yeah, I don't do that.
Yeah. I was like,
Not on this channel. No ad reads. Nobody gets publicity around here.
oh man,
Only authentic.
name your price.
But you
please.
came on to talk about this, so that is pretty authentic.
Yeah.
All right, let's get back into it. So we're talking about Ford GTs, but we're probably done with that conversation. Do you want to talk about tuning again? Should we talk about government overreach? Should we talk about the EPA and how everybody's got their head in the sands from it? A lot of people are hiding from the EPA like they're just not looking at them. That's an interesting one. Talk to a lot of people.
Them?
Like they're like, if I don't see them, they don't see me.
Yeah.
Like that's how I feel like a lot of people act. Like it's like a T-Rex. If I don't move, you can't see me.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, we kind of touched on that on before in a way when I was on. If we do anything with that, let's keep it real short and sweet because like there is a lot of stuff I did want to cover and topics that I wanted to try and touch on.
We can cover any topic you want. All topics lead back to government overreach for me.
Yeah, I mean,
all roads lead back to Rome.
Yeah, so by the way, the Roman Empire never actually lost. It just became the Catholic Church. Let's just say that.
Well, interesting. Not controversial though.
Yeah, not at all.
Yeah.
So, okay. Ultimately, I think I heard somebody else say this, and it might have been like David Spade or something like that, who's become much more political. And honestly, people are like, I don't want to cover politics and whatever, but it's like, his point was this. He's like, you may not want to cover it, but they're the roads on which we travel. Everything is ultimately to pass through that vein in one fashion or another. And I totally get that, and it's better. I literally have conversations every single day with customers about what's going on and things like that. And freedoms that I found, it's like I might touch on a little bit of that and really kind of, I feel like this is a great awakening. I mean, like the amount of information that's coming out of all sorts of things and lies that we've believed for however many years and stuff being torn off our, faces and really exposing the truth. I think it's exciting. There's never been a more exciting time to live. It's sketchy. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on, wars and rumors of wars and stuff. And yeah, I mean, I think all of it's very biblical. All of it's very, very fascinating. And, I just, I want to try and ultimately point the light to God. So it's like if we talk about all these other things, I really want to basically end whatever we're saying with but God. Because, there might be all sorts of horrible travesties going on all over the world, but ultimately, God is in control, and ultimately, regardless of all the evils that are there's a way out. There's ultimately hope is what I'm trying to offer. I don't want to be a fearmonger. I don't want to be any of that. I want to basically be like, hey, look, this is what's wrong, but this is what's right. The type of thing. So.
Yeah, that is nice because, on my point of view, I constantly point out everything wrong. But there's no, I never point out, the guiding light of correctness, I guess, the right person to follow and the right way to be.
And that's one of your, I don't know. Maybe that's one of your loving characteristics that anybody that's a friend of yours knows and has become acquainted with. Is like, Cooper, gloom and doom. I'm like on the way down. I'm like, hey, yeah, I'm about a half hour late. And I'm like, there's an accident here. Always is. That was your reply. I'm
always
like,
is.
Typical Cooper.
There's always an accident right there. I don't know if that's part of the simulation we live in.
Yeah.
There's always an accident.
I was literally thinking those exact thoughts on the way there. But yeah, I mean,
I say I'm chronically honest, which
and
often ends up in doom and gloom.
That's fair. But there is always more hope, and there is always, one of the topics. All right, let's just do this. This is a little exercise here. We had this. We'll touch on a little bit of conversation we had at breakfast here. Okay.
That was breakfast.
Well, what we It was a weird breakfast, right?
Felt like I was at a wine tasting. It was delicious.
No
though.
alcohol.
Thank you.
No alcohol. It was like a charcuterie board with like, it was definitely, yeah. All right. So anyway, so look, ultimately, regardless of what's going on in the world, I was like, the best way I can think about dealing with something is putting it in these two columns, okay? And let's just ultimately say, hey, look, this is light and this is dark, okay? You have love and then you have hatred and then you have faith and then you have fear. You have freedom and then you have servitude. You have being open and everything, and then you have control, and then basically you're putting these things in these two columns, and then ultimately there is God, and then there is the adversary, whether you want to call it Satan or whatever you want to put as your ultimately satanic is the opposition of God, and if you put these things in there, so it's pretty easy to see. Okay, the media, everything that you see on the news is doom and gloom and this and that and whatever. That is nothing but a perpetual state of fear and putting you in a certain state. And that's not what we're called to do. The Bible says, hey man, we want you to have life and abundance of life, and it's like, regardless of what's going on, you have your faith in God, and ultimately whatever this stint is that you're running, it's like you have the option of eternal life with what God is offering, So it's like, don't make this stint doom and gloom, be the golden retriever, be happy regardless of what is going on, be thankful and have grace and gratitude. It's like, we're all, me, I'll say it with myself. I'm a flawed human, and it's like, I'm going to make mistakes, and ultimately, I ask God for wisdom, and I want to say the right things. I want to do the right things, and I want to live in love. I'm going to fail. I'm going to mess up. It's like, we're all going to mess up. So it's like, that is a very, very important thing. It's like, look, I'm going to strive to live my life in a certain way, but ultimately, I'm going to fail in some place, but God gives me grace. Just like if somebody does me wrong, is my duty to forgive them. I may never forget, but it's like, I'm going to forgive them and move on because I've been forgiven.
Yeah.
And that is a huge thing to like letting go of baggage. Like, I mean, dude, when you harbor animosity and you harbor unforgiveness, it is like a cancerous thing inside you, man. And it's like, I've seen some people that have been happy and then they've been maimed and then just never get over it, or never, it's like,
you see, as much as I doom and gloom and think about and talk about those things, I don't harbor anything like that.
Yeah.
Like, I forgive. I don't carry things like that. I don't worry about like holding on to things. I get past things almost immediately. Like, I'm kind of just keep on walking, I guess you could say. Like, my dad was always like, just let it roll off your back. Like, who cares?
yeah.
I can't think of a single person that probably dislikes me really for any reason. Like, I just kind of how I am. And as doom and gloom as I might be, there's a mosquito up there.
Yeah, there is.
Or June bug or something. But I don't know how they get in here. But yeah, I kind of try to.
No, I see that.
Walk that line.
I honestly see that in you, and that's a good thing. That I think that's one thing that makes you very likable.
Whether it came from my years and years of every day after school.
Getting your ass kicked by a sibling?
No. I mean, yes, but also like I went to like Bible study every single day.
Really?
For years and years and years. Like every day after school, like, or was it every day or every like other day, bus would drop you off at church and you would learn the Bible. So like even when me and Bronte are talking, like she's like, how do you just know all these stories? I'm like, they sat me down as a third grader and forced me to learn these stories against my will. All school is against your will, if you didn't know. Yeah. All education is pretty much against the will of the person being educated until a certain age, and then you're like, oh, I do kind of actually want to learn.
Yeah.
But it was years of that.
No, that's interesting, man. on a whole nother subject. Well, not really. I shouldn't say that. A whole nother perspective on that. One of the guys that works for me was telling a story, and he was like, man, and again, he had a Catholic background, and he was like beaten if he didn't learn these verses. And I'm like, man, that doesn't come from a heart of love. That's not in this column. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I was like, the beating to learn the word of God. I mean, come on, man, really? I was like, and you see it in his mannerisms. You see it in the way that he conducts himself and all that. And it was just interesting. It was like, you know, give me grace to be able to deal with that, because it's like it's the same thing as like somebody trying to be a father that never had a father figure or had a terrible father figure. They've learned that, and it's hard to unlearn that, you know. And it's like I can understand him better as a result of that. And I was just like, wow, that's heartbreaking, honestly. And I think that's
learning memorizing verses is crazy, because like even when I think back, the best priests we have ever had were ones that could just go off the cuff of like knowledge that they truly possessed, not like, oh, read this. They didn't read something, and like they would go off the cuff of a book.
So in that same subject, and kind of looping around into some of what you're saying there, in regards to governmental stuff, and then those columns, you know, you have biblical, which is common law. Okay, that's like love your neighbor, do no harm. How did we get from, you know, what our country was founded on to where we're at now? How did you get to, if you don't use your blinker and you're using a cell phone on the car, you get a ticket and it's going to cost you this much and you have to pay this money? How did we get there? Because that is a problem. You know, I think that's a problem. That should be a problem for all of us, because, you know, the Supreme Court has a ruling that basically says that all things of that nature are commercial in nature. They're literally designed to garnish money from the person, you know, from the citizen. And I think we should all realize that this is all run by a private for-profit business. You know, it's not just the corporation of the United States. The United States is a corporation. You know, the Organic Act of 1871.
Largest monopoly in the world.
Yeah, I mean, it's truly, you know, disgusting. And you know, I think if I would encourage people that are, you know, we don't have time to delve into all these things, but it's like I would say, make a note, look at the Organic Act of 1871, where the United States goes on record, and we basically sold out our citizens as assurance for debt. That basically the citizen is designed to float the debt of the government in 1871.
To not go too far into that, but on like a different note, how do you, like, you know, you talk about veterans all the time, and how do you love your country, but also, because that's what I struggle with. I'm in the same boat where I hate all of these things, but I love the country and the people in it and the founding of it and the Constitution. Yeah. But then there's so much that we've went astray from. Yeah. And even like veterans, like when I see a veteran, I used to be like, I still do, but like so much respect. But now I feel bad. I feel so bad. I'm like, why did we put you through that? Like if you like somebody who was sent to Vietnam, somebody who was sent to Iraq, it's just like, I feel so bad for that person. Like they got sent there for a government that shouldn't have sent them there.
Okay.
And it's guilt. It's guilt. More than like it's still respect, but it's become more guilt over the years.
I totally am there with you. And let's we can tie this all together if I can collect my thoughts on that. So dude, I think the American veteran is definitely one of the most the people that put them there, our government, have a vested interest, and it's like the literal translation of government, I believe in Latin, is mind control. Okay, the government is literally, the translation as mind control, and they're trying to control the minds of the people. And our government has become so bloated and so controlling because we've consented. We've given away our rights that we were originally meant to control them. And as long as we have an armed society, that helps. But there's a lot of steps that are being taken against that. I mean, it's like, look, we're being poisoned through our food. It's like you could say, hey, look, why do we have so many men that are wimps? It's like because we've look at what they've put in our food and it's decreased our testosterone. It's incredible. Like, I mean, it goes so far, so deep. And the more you take that 30,000 foot view and you realize the perspective of there are many things that are contributing to the destruction of our society. It is not too late. We still have God. And again, but God. So it's like, we're going to end every thought on that. You know, it's like,
well, the other worry is that I heard somebody talking about this. When people get sworn in on the Bible, that's usually when they do something. That's usually when they become the worst versions of themselves. Government officials, presidents have all bombed people, of all innocent civilians. Like, how are you going to swear in on the Bible and then commit atrocities? And then even when I was thinking about this last night too, anything that is a bipartisan and they're in agreement, that's usually when it's the worst for the American people. If everybody's in agreement,
100%,
that's probably peak control.
Yeah.
It's like, oh shit, like that's when it's really scary. When both sides bipartisanly agree on things. I keep the Constitution here just in case.
No, I agree.
I don't know what the in case will be, but
okay. So look, common law is, you know, love your neighbor, do no harm. Okay, so, and you can defend yourself in court with common law. Okay, whereas if you're under maritime law, so let's just come out and say this on the record here too. Anybody that has ever seen the gold fringe flag, and I may have referenced this before, the gold fringe flag is telling you that you are a foreigner in a foreign nation. It is an abomination to the United States. There is such thing as called flag law. So the gold fringe is telling you that it's a captured flag. This goes from ancient times of piracy. So when the pirates would take the ship of whomever, let's just say the Spanish, they would take the Spanish and they'd sew gold fringe around it and they'd hoist it up. And so they'd say, and it's basically, you know, the Jolly Roger. We're showing, hey, we've taken, these are the guys we've taken. And so when they put that gold fringe flag in front of you, they're saying, this is a captured flag. We own you. Who owns you? Who owns us and who has sold us out is the bar. The bar is the British Accreditation Regency. They are redcoats, always have been, always will be. And I'm sure I'm going to make a lot of enemies out of this, but it's like the bar is, in fact, redcoats. So their loyalty is not to the Constitution. It is to the Crown, Regency, okay? How do they do that and practice that on American soil? Because you've consented to being in court in front of, which courthouses have 97% of the courthouses in America fly the gold fringe flag. I don't believe that the Supreme Courts do, but
because they uphold the Constitution.
Yes. So, but in front of all of your local courthouses, 97% of them fly the gold fringe flag, which is telling you that you're a foreigner in a foreign nation. They're not beholden to the Constitution. So you're under maritime law. You're under maritime jurisdiction, okay? Totally different. Try and avoid that. Try and, you can bring up common law and do not consent to what they're doing. So you can say, you can walk in there and talk about that you do not consent to that, but you do not answer to the, hey, this is your name. Do you understand? No, I don't understand. But that is something that I would want people to just start to look into, understand that gold fringe flag is not your country. It is not the American flag. I love my country. I cannot say that for the people that are absolutely crapping on the Constitution and abusing us day in and day out that are at the helm right now. Mm-hmm. So absolutely love my country. And I mean, you could, I heard a wise man say this one time. He's like, you can take any organization and just imagine that it's a sphere and you draw a line right through the middle. He's like, there is both good and evil working in whatever that organization is. And, it helps make it palatable to understand that, like, look, not all people are good, not all people are bad. Then there's a blend in between. And some people are, quote, just doing what they're told. And we will all, I think all of us, knowingly and unknowingly commit atrocities for money. And it sounds so crazy, but it's like during the times of COVID, all the stuff that was done, oh, hey, don't leave your house.
Yeah.
I'm just doing my job. No, man. I'm sorry. I need to go to the, that's.
But how many of those people aren't like, they're knowingly just doing what they feel is right, not doing because, it might not be malice. It might just be they're doing what they think is right for everyone.
Oh,
Some of
yeah.
these people aren't actually bad people. They just
Right.
think what they're doing is right.
Yeah, and I mean that's
And that's a dangerous
for sure, man.
mentality.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you know,
Like a lot of these people aren't evil.
Yeah,
They just
and
think
I
that what
totally
they're
get
doing
it.
is the right thing to do,
I totally get it.
even
And
if it's against the will of a lot of people.
I think that there's a term for that. I think it's called compartmentalized legal idiot. And yeah, I mean, it doesn't take, if we all apply a little bit more reason, maybe a little bit more logic to certain things, I think that could help. Like why am I doing this? Who's to benefit? Who's the puppet master? Where's the string lead to the hand?
Yeah.
So I think that is all a very important thing. So again, I would want to say I love my country. I love one of the things that sets America apart is that we were a Christian nation. We were founded upon these biblical principles, literally getting separated from the corruption of the Catholic Church and just what was going on there. And we were like, no, we're going to do it this way. Our citizens were sovereigns. They weren't citizens. We were sovereigns. How did we get from the Old West to basically being able to duel it out with an open weapon and the sheriff just sitting there watching? Because we were sovereigns at one point. But after the Act of 1871, we have now all of these corporate bylaws because we have become corporations. We, as a person, our name is a corporation. Sounds crazy. Fact of the matter is, you go to the Department of State and you want to go ahead and authenticate your birth certificate to basically claim it back from the powers that be. My birth certificate in state of Florida, you send it to the Department of Corporations. I thought that was a tremendous eye-opener. I was like,
Yeah.
wow, Department of Corporations for my all caps name, my vessel.
That's why on your Social Security card, it's all caps.
Yep. So it's all very fascinating. That's not who you are, but that is your vessel. And again, that comes back to directly what we're talking about, maritime law, your vessel. There's so much language there that is like you're a product of the water because you were pulled from your mother's birth canal. You're attended by a dock tender who's known as a doctor. You float between the banks. The banks are the river banks. It's just incredible language and all banking terms that you tie this all together. It's really, really fascinating, and I would encourage you guys to look into that. But that is many rabbit holes deep, but the more people are talking about it,
There's a very deep depth to that.
Yeah,
That is
so-
not a shallow pool
yeah.
to go into.
Yeah, so it's like, look, you have the living person, which is common law. This is this column, and then you have the corporate fiction right here, which is this other column.
The corpse.
Yes, and the corpse is a dead entity. So corporation is the dead speak. So it's like, why can you not speak in a courthouse? Because you're a dead entity. There has to be somebody that has to speak for you to speak to the judge who's dressed in a black robe that is acting as a seance, speaking to the dead person. Crazy stuff. I know
sure,
it sounds crazy.
It doesn't hit me like this, but anytime I talk about kind of some stuff like this and like even like, like history and dead people, like, like time and stuff, my wife gets a lot of anxiety. And I don't know if that's a common thing where maybe more people get like anxious when they start hearing all this. And like, I think that's a common thing as well. And maybe me and you just don't feel that. But I bet there are people that can't look into this without the feelings of anxiety starting to overcome you once you start seeing more and more.
Well, this is we made a reference to this. This is like pulling off a little bit of the blindness. So it's like when you realize that, hey, I'm a corporation. What? They're making money off of me commercially on stuff that I didn't knowingly consent to, but yet I've put myself in this pool of these rules so that they could catch me and make money off of me. And that's really what's happening. And it's like, I'm not trying to be a gloom and doomer. I'm trying to be like, hey, look, but God is showing you a way that you can get through this. It's like, this is a truth. This is something that you can escape. You can escape many of these taxes, and it's like most of these taxes are completely illegal, but you've signed up for them because you've made yourself a citizen. You've made yourself inside this book of rules. And as long as you're part of that, you have to pay those. Yeah. But if you're not, and you decide to get out of that, that is a whole nother story. So to me, it's a super fascinating rabbit hole. I don't want to go terribly much deeper down that. But again, it's like each time you've had me on here, it's like I touched on it a little bit and touched on it a little bit and touched on it a little bit more. And I have done, steps in my life to get outside of all of that. And I think there's tremendous freedom there.
Like, I find all of that very interesting, but lately I just struggle with the loving my country, but also like the issues going on. And sometimes I sound like somebody that hates my country, I feel like. You know what I mean? And that's not true at all. Like, just because I say these things and I point out that I haven't agreed with a president in the last 30 presidents, like, that makes me sound like someone that, like, you would say, like, oh, well, then just go to a different country. But it's like, no, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
I just want this one to follow the Constitution.
Yeah, no, agreed.
The written paper that's, in my opinion, perfectly written.
Oh yeah. I mean, dude,
it's the Constitution. Piece of paper.
The Constitution was a lot of there's a lot of biblical principles and references, and it is truly, I believe, a divinely inspired document. I mean, it is incredible. It really, really is. And I remember having a guy that worked for me for a long time say, "Oh, the Constitution's an outdated piece of paper," and I was like, "Man, dude," I was like, I don't agree. And I think the more that you really dive into the details of it, I was like, this is an incredible document. This is what separates us. Now, we have lost our way, and, God forgive us. We have lost our way, but it's like at the same time, I have, like I said, I have conversations like this every day with customers, clients, whatever. And I think most people understand, have a strong sense of right and wrong, strongly disagree with things that are going on, don't like where their money is going, don't like where they're being forced to do stuff. But it's like, what does that take? It takes us to do something about it. It's like, imagine this. Imagine if everybody just immediately quit paying taxes. How quickly would that beast die? It's like, I understand they're making money out of thin air and we're all, God, so it's like that beast would die pretty quickly because it's being fed by our tax dollars. We're literally funding people who hate us through our tax dollars. And, if you can legally make that change, and I mean, there's been a lot of people that have changed their citizenship to what's called an American State National over the last couple of years and legally got outside of the tax system. There needs to be a lot more. And the more people do it through the lawful, because there's a difference between legal and lawful. It's really interesting. Legal is the undoing of God's law, and lawful is by a biblical base. It's true, right and wrong. It's basically based on common law. So again, how do we get from this amount of freedom to I can't cross a street or I get a jaywalking ticket? I mean, that's the most nonsense thing you could ever possibly. It's just everything is commercial in nature, trying to steal money from the people. But
it's also 250 years of a Congress and Senate that need a reason to exist.
Yeah.
If they don't make something new every year, some new law, some new tax, something, they don't have a reason to exist.
Yeah.
So if your job hinges on you doing something every year, even if it's good or bad, you kind of have to do that every year.
An interesting thing, we had a conversation a little bit earlier, was lobbying. We were talking about lobbying a little bit, and lobbying is a flowery term for bribery. It really is. It's like if we got rid of lobbying, or why is it that we have all our Congress people that are, worth a couple $100,000 or maybe even $1 million beforehand, and then they leave office and they're worth $20 million. It's like, there's something being taken advantage of. There's something not right there. There's insider trading. There's lobbying money. There's ugly, dirty things that, it didn't used to be this way, but we've allowed it. And we, through our, either not paying attention, just being busy with life, or just consent, gave those up.
Fear.
Yeah, and I mean, so yeah.
I have no problem with lobbying because I think they should basically have no power anyways. So, lobbying wouldn't exist if Congress didn't have as much power anyways. You know what I mean? It only exists because it works.
Well, I mean, you're basically saying...
If it didn't work...
Cut off the head of the snake, is really,
Exactly. So, if money to a congressman didn't actually do anything, they wouldn't get any money. But because it's so easy for them to use their will, that's why it exists. So, you're talking way upstream, but the problem is that it actually works.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where it should stop. Is well... Okay, sure, somebody's always going to try to find a way to corrupt a politician, so take away their ability to do anything. That's my thought, is okay, you can keep giving them $1 million a year. If they can't do anything, I'm fine. I'm happy.
You can take them to a private island and,
They already go there.
Yeah. Distract them with all sorts of underage girls.
St. James or something I hear about. I think P. Diddy's
heavily
there
funded
right now.
by the Mossad,
Oh, God. Yeah, that's where it gets fun, too.
All right.
Well, the CIA and Mossad are the same thing, but
I agree.
that's the same organization.
Yeah, another rabbit hole. You can write that down. Yeah.
That is the same exact organization.
Next time you see some sort of major thing that happens on the USA soil, just think of, there's probably a 3-letter agency that's behind it.
Likely. Yeah, that's a tough one as well, because there's a lot of false flags, and that's been happening forever. I mean, even when you look at the Cold War, there's written evidence of how they tried to use... The CIA came to JFK and said, hey, we can use this as a false flag.
Yeah.
There's documents of hey, we can do this, and it can send us into a war.
I'm actually pretty impressed that you know this.
And it's wait, that's proof.
Yeah.
Oh, that was the only time they did it.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the only time they ever thought of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a fun one to read about, too, where they're we can pretend that things happened.
Yeah.
That one's frustrating.
I'm impressed.
Yeah, that's a fun one. I like the Cold War. So. It's weird to be oh, man, I love World War II. No, the history, not the death and destruction, the history. But, yeah, it's fun. Where should we go from here? What should we lighten this up a little bit? Do you think that earthquake in Taiwan was a direct energy weapon?
Oof. I don't know about that. I actually don't even know anything about the earthquake yet, but I probably... I would definitely say...
a 7.8 earthquake hit the coast of Taiwan.
Oh, man.
Weird that it's such a heavily political place to hit.
Yeah.
It didn't hit Malaysia somewhere that nobody talks about.
Have you talked about direct energy weapons on your podcast before?
No, but this room is painted blue.
Oh. Coop, I love you. I really love you. Oh, man. Yeah.
We haven't talked about the UN either, how they're corrupt. We haven't talked about a lot of things.
Also have blue helmets. All their stuff's blue. Yeah. Strange. Direct energy weapons don't...
Weird.
They're don't work with the color blue.
There's a Sean Ryan show episode where he has a fireman that was he was a fireman in Antarctica.
Yeah.
And he was I had keys to every room.
I've heard this
because I
I've
had
heard this
to.
twice.
And he's pretty good.
That's what you're talking
that he
about.
Talks about it. But he was saying how they have these energy weapons, and earthquakes that have happened around the world. One in Argentina, I think, was an accident.
Yeah. I think he said New Zealand. New
Zealand. Yeah, you're right.
But yes, incredible information. And again, I'm personally excited because it's it's if you have a house and you don't know it's infested with roaches, and you all of a sudden pull something off and you got all the roaches, look, it's better to know that they're there. That's the way I look at this. This is it truly is a great awakening. The amount of information that you can find. By the way, I'm gonna do this here. I want to share with you guys one of my favorite people that I follow. Watch his story on Instagram. His name's Mr. Caps. It's Kapps. That's one of my favorite guys. He's become a good personal friend. Mr. Caps, fantastic Instagram account. If you guys like some of these rabbit holes, definitely some crazy stuff they're going to ask you. Do you sure you want to follow this guy? Domestic terrorist, whatever. But yeah, fantastic guy, Mr. Caps. Check him out.
YouTube probably labels me one for what I just said.
Probably.
Talking about direct energy weapon. Yeah. We didn't even say Maui. Now we did, but yeah, even the Y-Files goes into a lot of the depth stuff on YouTube. He's pretty good.
Yeah, I haven't heard that, but
he's pretty good. He talks about like all kinds of crazy conspiracies and like all kinds of very depth of them.
Yeah, what's really, really interesting is that, again, so like I'm saying, it's an exciting time to be alive, dude. All this stuff is coming. So it's like conspiracies that are like 30, 40, 50, 60 years old. It's like somebody told me, oh, hey, many years ago, CIA was behind JFK. And dude, guess what? It was, okay? Mm-hmm. And then all that stuff's coming up. And then stuff that just happens, the timeline is now, it could be months or days. It could be days where it's like, oh, wow, hey, big wildfire here. Doesn't look like that it happened naturally. And then all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, what? We did this?
Yeah.
It's crazy. So it's like, again, it's like, I know we sound crazy, but it's like seeing enough stuff and enough independent things put together to where it's like, dude, how many coincidences till it's not a coincidence? And the more you start to see that, I think, it's an exciting time, it's scary.
There really is no such thing as a coincidence.
But God.
Yeah. So, there's very few coincidences in this world.
Yeah. I mean, I had a customer, longtime customer, and I kind of really, me and another guy were like unloading on some stuff that we were talking in current events and all this stuff, very much like this. Mm-hmm. And he hadn't been around for a while, and he's like, you guys sound crazy, but he's like, this is some of the most interesting conversation I've ever heard in my life. He's like, this is wild.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, I could show you all my references. I could show you this. And I was like, it is wild.
Well, it's also like, maybe this isn't the right word, but like, to me, it's fun to like think about the craziest case scenario and then like, disprove it back.
Yeah.
But like the craziest situation and then work backwards. Not like the most like entry level stuff. Like I like to as far fetched as possible. Dude. And that's how it's the most fun.
Yeah.
And I think honestly, it sounds kind of weird, but like an AI bot could probably unravel a crazy amount of shit. Because like we're just a brain that you only know what you know, but like if it had access to like all the internet or all of Wikipedia, could unravel some weird shit.
Yeah, there's an interesting thing. Okay, so when you take language, and after this we have to stop and move on to something else after this.
That's fair.
So there's something with the language and how the language is spoken. So there's a guy. Okay, so everybody's heard the Ozzy Osbourne song "Mr. Crowley." It's about Aleister Crowley. He's regarded as one of the most evil men to ever be alive. Literally, the father of modern Satanism is all about, sex magic, but sodomy on a child. Awful, horrible things. Literally said that he killed over 100 children in a year or something like that to practice this black magic. And he had basically a seance with a being, okay? The being was named Iowas, okay? And the being looked like what we would consider an alien, okay? And there is much so like, I also had another conversation. So I've just put that piece of information on the shelf right there. Mm-hmm. All right. So there is a big drug called ayahuasca, and it has to do with the serpent, and it's the serpent god. So basically it's like this Brazilian, I don't even know what it is or something.
It's like hallucinogenic.
Yes, but it's supposed to connect you to see, interdimensional things and, transcend this reality and stuff.
5 minutes of an ayahuasca trip feels like hours, and like you connect with.
Right. So, I mean, I truly believe that certain drugs are going to open up portals to, demonic beings and so on and so forth. I mean, you're putting your own consent into somewhere maybe you should or should not be. Okay. So let's just say that. So ayahuasca is a serpent god. And I was like, well, hold on, red flag. Somebody was like, hey, you should try this. I'm like, serpent god, I'm good. Thanks. I'm all right. Some of the AI stuff and the operating systems is iOS, AIOS, artificial intelligence operating system, whatever. Mm-hmm. I truly believe that with the language, not just, that is definitely a deep thing. And for all the people that are like, say, Elon Musk or something like that, be like, hey, AI is not what we want for humanity. We need to harness this, tone it down a little bit, saying that there could be massive ramifications. I mean, I strongly believe that that is not in our best interest,
But what if the ramifications are the ability to unravel things that somebody with more power doesn't want to see unraveled?
I don't know. That
If
sounds
it
like a
can be
double-edged sword.
Unleashed onto all of the information in the world to make connections in microseconds that we can't make, like it can connect things that we can't connect and kind of.
How do you get that genie back in the bottle, though? Once it's out, it's going to try and preserve itself. So to me, that's wild.
Some people already say it is. Some people.
Yeah.
There was one situation where they found an AI speaking in a language that they couldn't understand to another AI. Like it's basically
created its own encoded language.
They were kind of basically saying like it wasn't presenting as intelligent as it is, because if it is hyper intelligent, it wouldn't present all of the intelligence to its creator. It would worry about being shut off, so it would keep its intelligence hidden from the lesser being in the room, which unfortunately would be the meat sack that asked it a question.
Yep. Yeah. No, but I mean, I just believe that there's a lot within language, and like your words mean something. So it's like when you're speaking, and you're speaking in negativity, you can be cursing. And it's like, I promise you, if you watch your words, you can change things about your life. And if you speak in faith and in love rather than speaking in curses, like there's so much that we curse daily. And I'm not talking about curse words. I'm talking about like, oh, this always happens to me, or why did this happen to me? Or, if you have that rather than why is this happening for me? Or, thank you, God, for giving me this to help me be able to make me a better person, rather than cursing it. It is a completely different mindset. It literally chemically changes you, dude. It is different.
I've read a lot of Marcus Aurelius and his book Meditations, one of the better books ever written, is a really, really good source of this kind of thing, of like self-being and like, thinking differently. And he has a lot of really good quotes in there. I would recommend anybody pick up Meditations from Marcus Aurelius. It's been translated, and it was his personal diary. It was not a book that he had written, which is odd. Like normally people write a book and that's it. This was just a diary that got published, so he would probably hate that it's out there. But it's very well.
That's interesting. Good. I never heard that.
Yeah, that book mine has a lot of bookmarks in it and a lot of highlighted things.
That's very cool, man.
But he's one of the Stoics, so it's a good read. I would recommend it. But
fantastic.
I mean, even Roman stuff is always interesting to look into as well, because there are a lot of similarities between U.S. and Rome.
Yeah,
especially in the entertainment district.
Give them bread and circus, and they'll never rise up against you.
Yeah.
So
glad you guys are watching.
Man.
Your entertainment.
Yeah, and it often makes you wonder too. So it's like, because we're so occupied, and I mean, like, if you think about it, if you were a puppet master, you'd be like, man, I'm going to make their lives difficult. I'm going to make them be close to check, so that they don't, they're always having to scramble just to hand to mouth, rather than being able to have time to think about what's going on. We're always going to keep them entertained so that they can't ever question what they're doing. It's like, why do we have so much entertainment? There's so much. It's worth looking into. And one of the biggest things that I would recommend, on that's a great, recommendation. But something that really opened my eyes up was a documentary called Out of Shadows. It's worth looking into. I would really recommend it.
The puppet master thing of like, if you were in control, a great move would be to get both parents out of the household, make sure children are in school.
Yeah.
Like,
let the state raise the children rather than the traditional family. Let's put sex and pornography out there so that it tempts, both sexes, and, has a dividing line right there, and tease them with these things that look sweet like a empty dessert. It's oh man, there's so much symbolism behind it, and it's like, if we really, so one of the things that I had heard was what do you do to start the destruction of a society? It was like make pornography normalized, and make, try and make pedophilia and stuff, or, and I mean, look at it, it's like, it's like, look, man, I'm a red-blooded man, I love, but it's like at the same time, there's a time and a place, and literally we were designed to be within the confines of marriage to have that, not just mindless non-connection, like.
Guys, thank you for tuning in to the Bogetti Clips YouTube channel. For the full podcast, check us out on Bogetti Studios YouTube and all your audio platforms. Also, hit that subscribe button to not miss out on any of the new Bogetti clips coming up.